Okay, guys, welcome to URBONUS podcast. This is the pod tonight where 3 different time zones meets, actually. I'm the host, Donatas URBONUS. It's around 9 p.m. from Vilnius, snowy, rainy, cloudy Vilnius. And I have 2 guys from a very nice, shiny places, warm places, kind of, something I could dream of. So first of all, this is our veteran co-host, the next mayor of Izmir, Eric McCollum, at 9:30 p.m. from Izmir. Hello, Eric.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
And another interesting basketball mind who is about to make his URBONUS debut, NBA champ, Monaco guard Jordan Loyd at 7:30 p.m. from Monaco. Hello, Jordan.
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show, guys. As I said, let's try to pretend that it's not late Monday, which is usually very, very tough at any given day. If you're a basketball player, if you're a journalist or anybody, we all hate Mondays. But let's inspire people with some great basketball talks, with some great basketball takes, because we have a lot of stuff to discuss. But before, just a quick personal questions for both of you. Eric, you're just coming off some crazy game against back-to-back EuroLeague champs. 29 points, double overtime win. I watched the end of the game starting from the fourth quarter. It was incredible. Incredible setup for a nice documentary or for some highlight reel for the NBA fans, actually. What was their favorite highlight of the game?
It was just the back and forth, the big shots. Just when you thought one team would pull away, Efes would come down, hit a shot. And then we get down 3 or 4 points, and then we would come down and make a big player hit a shot. It just seems like both teams had that desire, that fight. And, it was a special game. I've never been in a game like that where it's so much back and forth, so many different lead changes, just high-level basketball, guys hitting extremely difficult shots. And this was a fun night to play.
Yeah, you also made some great shots. And you also made this great game-winning assist, I would say. I left the last possession where Micic decided to pass the ball into the corner because you were 3 guys about to jump on him, not to let him shoot the ball. And probably the guy who get the ball, he didn't expect to get that ball and to make that last second layup.
Yeah, I think we over-rotated. We for sure wanted to double him, but I think there was multiple guys who had the same thought. I think I was thinking, Kuzmiskas was thinking, if we lose, it's not going to be on a Micic shot. We've seen him hit those shots in the EuroLeague. We've seen him make those big plays, and we would rather it come from someone else. Obviously, we didn't want to rotate off Clyburn, so that wasn't an option. So we left one of the Turkish players, open, and he had an opportunity. But you live with that, and I think sometimes basketball is a gamble. You need a little bit of luck, and I can live with losing, to a role player, but I can't live with not doing everything I can. As a team and as a individual to get the ball out of the main player's hands.
And Jordan, you're having this big game in France. You're playing as well. Probably we can call it French derby. And we just discussed it before the pod, actually. I forgot the fact that you were coached by Sasha Obradovic in Red Star. And can you compare Sasha Obradovic and his approach before big game against Partizan back in the day and now before Asphalt game?
Yeah, I mean, Sasha's great. I mean, like I was saying, he's a huge reason I came here to Monaco. But yeah, he's a little bit different, same principles, same methods, just taking down a few levels. I think he's really, really embracing like being a player coach and being able to talk and communicate openly with all the guys. So, I mean, any game, obviously he's going to have his his how he's going to approach it. He wants us serious. He wants us locked in from if we're on the road, in the hotel the night before, just things like that. But, when we're playing teams that might not be as good per se in the French league, he really that's all we talk about is just being serious. We go over the game plan and then after that, it's on us. We're professionals. So he does a good job of trying to get us, we have a lot of guys, a lot of personalities on our team, and it's very different than probably what he's used to. So he does a pretty good job of trying to maintain and make sure all the guys stay focused, for a game like that. So, every game we try to have the same mindset, try to have the same mentality, because it's tough between EuroLeague and French league. But yeah, so, big game versus Asvel in the French league tomorrow. So obviously it's pretty easy to get up for one like that.
Speaking of French league, tell me something. I remember when the French league announced that they will have this All-Star game. I was surprised that they scheduled it on the same day as you're gonna play EuroLeague game against Žalgiris. Then there this moment, like now you're playing Asvel on Tuesday. I don't know about the peak times in France, but usually in Lithuania, Tuesday night game is like a bad level LKL game, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, hey, this is my first year in the league. It's obvious that like they're just trying to put games here or there whenever they can. And then I've heard like the season lasts till like almost July. So I don't know what's going on. But I've talked to some of the guys about last year. They had the same situation. I believe the All-Star game was on the same day as the EuroLeague game. And I don't know why that's even a thing. I'm sure they can try to find a day that doesn't have that. But, because the fans want to, obviously, the people in France, they want to see the best players in the league, and if they're not able to show up for a EuroLeague game, it's just clashing. So I have no idea why they decided to do. I don't know about the scheduling. I don't know anything. I just kind of show up. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what the guys that made the All-Star team are going to do. It'll be interesting for sure.
By the way, regarding this schedule thing, are you aware of when the season might finish in France?
That's what I was saying. He laughing. I know. I've heard it was like June 23rd, June 25th. So, hey man, at least I'll be in a nice place. Might stay here.
That's okay. But I mean, from the fan perspective, as far as I know, I mean, for example, Metropolitans with Victor Wembanyama, potentially they might make the finals. And we have the NBA draft on June 22nd. So potentially he might have to skip the French League finals because of the NBA draft. Because, I mean, he's the best projected prospect coming off Europe. And I just don't get it. I mean, there's so much talent over there. Both Asvel, Monaco, they have the record budgets in the entire French basketball history. They have players like Nando De Col on one side. They have players like Mike James, Elio Kobo, Jordan Loyd on the other. They have Victor Wembanyama, and all these things are happening. For me, I'm coming from Lithuania. For me, it's tough to understand what's going on there.
That's a good point. Go ahead, E. I didn't even think about that though.
You would hope that the French League would make some adjustments to the schedule, just because they sold the rights to air Victor's game, so they understand what they have. They understand he's special. Just for one player, 130,000 euros. I think BasketNews reported it, but if you see that a guy is that big of a star and has that potential to bring more recognition to France and to bring more growth to more players, you got to give him that moment. Going to the draft. Seeing my brother get drafted at that time, that was just something special. And I think the work he's put in, everything he's overcome from the injuries, from not being well known early on to becoming this big star, you got to give him that opportunity if they are fortunate enough to make the finals.
Yeah, okay, so enough of French basketball. Let's hope they're going to solve their problems. Tonight we have an exciting list of topics. First of all, Facundo Campazzo is still undecided about where his next destination, the EuroLeague, will be. So we'll make this job for him. We'll decide where he should go. Also, we will decide whether Maccabi Tel Aviv should fire Oded Kattash or not, since he's on the hot seat. We'll decide if champs Efes are finally back with this following this 4-game winning streak in the EuroLeague, and we'll explain why Real Madrid is the hottest team in the EuroLeague at the moment. So, guys, a lot of decisions to make tonight. Let's start with Campazzo. During the pod, I'm just checking Twitter tweet because I believe that at any moment we might have some breaking news about his destination, whether he's coming back to the EuroLeague or he's staying in the NBA, which probably is unlikely, although a lot of different rumors over here. But anyways, let's play this hypothetical game where you would like to see Facundo Campazzo heading to, which team he would boost the most, or which would be the most interesting move by Facundo Campazzo for you as the just EuroLeague fans?
I think for me, it's a simple choice. You go back to Real Madrid. You're already comfortable there. You know what you're getting into. You know how you fit. You know, the complementary piece. The team is actually having success. They actually do need a boost in the point guard position. With Lou and, you know, Rodriguez a little older, sometimes having some inconsistencies this season, as we saw early on, that they picked up their play now. But you know what you're getting into. Sometimes when you go to a new situation, it's extremely difficult to be the savior. You know, Milan's in a bad shape. They're in a bad way. You know, they probably need more than just one player. They need guys just to play to their current level and their abilities, and they're struggling. And I believe they have a strong roster. You know, I think they have really good players, but for some reason, Messina's just not getting the most out of them this year. And they're not playing at the level that, you know, we've seen them play at years past on previous teams. And, you know, when you come in, and how do those two fit together when Pangos comes back from a knee injury, if he does go to Milan, right? You can't play those two back in the backcourt together. It's too small. I don't think that can work. But we've seen him in Real Madrid. We know what he can do. It's an easy transition, and I think it's a simple choice for him.
I'm a piggyback that. First of all, this guy was my first year in EuroLeague when I was in Valencia. It was my first time seeing him at Real Madrid, and he was such a game changer. Like him on Madrid, it was like night and day. And obviously, like kind of like Eric said, like going back to Madrid would be, I mean, like the no-brainer. I mean, they're already a great team. They have everything they need. And then him and Tavares, that combo was just like really hard to guard. So I could see that happening. And then something I don't think people are talking about would be Partizan. I know it probably wouldn't happen, but I know early in the year they were talking about like looking for a point guard or looking for something like that. But man, if they could find a way to get him in Partizan, that would be like kind of an interesting situation because like I said, I've never seen like kind of one player just really just change the game, control the game, get guys involved, score when he needs to score, and he's a hell of a defender. So I mean, he kind of checks off all the boxes, and that'll be interesting to see wherever he lands. I agree with you about the Milan piece too. Like, I love their team. They have great makeup. I just don't think with Pangos coming back and things like that it'll work out. But Partizan is really interesting for me. Not likely probably, but we'll see.
I remember that actually Campazzo's situation is pretty similar to Vildoza's situation. Both Baskonia and now Real Madrid, they kind of own their rights in the ACB league. And there was a big scandal in Spain when Vildoza decided to return to the EuroLeague but go to Red Star. And I believe that this whole case might go on court. But from what I understood, Vildoza kind of avoided some tough situations by moving to Serbia to kind of get him free heading into the free agency in summer. And I also thought about this. If Vildoza is going to Red Star, maybe the other Argentinian can go to Partizan. We also talked about it with Eric in the beginning of the season, how much they are missing the point guard. But I actually thought about another team which is loaded with guards, especially with point guards. But I believe they need this boost. And I'm talking about Virtus Bologna. I love Daniel Hackett. Milos Teodosic is great. There are some other great Italian players like Paiola, Nico Mannion, but I don't see them as the game changers for Sergio Scariolo as main point guards. I think that whether it's Hackett, Teodosic, they could be a great backups for any other title contender team. They bring their own strengths. But Campazzo thing is, as Jordan, you mentioned, he's a game changer. And you're bringing Campazzo to Sergio Scariolo team, you probably have to move some other players. Like, for example, you can try to think something of sending Milos Teodosic to Serbia. I don't know whether he prefers Red Star or Partizan. That would be a huge boost for both of the teams. So we just talked that Partizan is missing a point guard. Maybe it would be a solution for them. So that's a potential salary dump for Virtus to make a move for Campazzo. And for Virtus, they're 15th in the EuroLeague by offensive rating. In 5 of 11 games, they didn't overcome 66-point mark. And replacing Teodosic with Campazzo, it won't hurt team's defense. It will slightly improve team's defense. And both, they are great creators. So if I'm Virtus owner, I'm going for Campazzo because I'm assigning him for like 1+2 because they don't have a guaranteed EuroLeague spot. So in case they go back to the Euro Cup, Campazzo is free to go. But by signing Campazzo, you improve your chances to go to top 8. And Euro Cup champions, if they make the top 8, they secure the spot in the EuroLeague for 1 more year. It's according to official rules. And also, whether Hackett or Teodosic, they're leaving after the season, they're on expiring contracts. With Campazzo, he's still 31. You kind of keep him for the future. He's your future point guard for another 3 or 4 years. So I think it would be a great move. Probably the problem is money. Although Virtus, they have a wealthy owner, I'm not so sure if they can, spend 1.5 or probably 2 million euros that Campazzo might be expecting right now in the market. So probably that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, you guys both made great points. I really would like the Partizan move, like Jordan said, just because they're just missing a point guard. That's it. And once they get that, it could change everything. And they've had defensive issues. And what better way to improve your defense than to have a little pest, full court pressing, denying everywhere on defense. And Bologna is an excellent example as well, just because when you watch them play, you see all the talent on the roster, but it just seems like they're supposed to play beautiful basketball with all these names, with all this talent. And it's not. It's stuck. It's in the mud. It's slow. It's grinded out. It's physical. And with all these great offensive players, you think it's supposed to flow. It's supposed to be efficient. You're supposed to see easy baskets. And they're just not manufacturing anything like that. And I think he would be perfect there. And he could be a great, solution to a lot of their problems. The only problem is, usually like a player like Campazzo, he's going to want, to stay in the EuroLeague and to have some stability. And that's why I say Madrid, they can give stability. Milan can give stability, but Milan's just a bad situation right now. And do you really want to do that? Messina's already talked about maybe if he can't get them to turn it around, maybe he steps down. So you want to go somewhere where at least you're going to know the coach, you're going to know the system as a player. You're thinking about these type of things. And you guys make excellent points. It's going to be curious to see, what he does and what team he, brings his talents to.
Yeah, even and then just to kind of piggyback what you just said about Bologna. I mean, even just playing, they were our first game of the season this year, and even without entertaining other players, I knew Toko was out, but I was like, man, I'm glad we're playing this team first, because I could see them probably getting better as the season went, So, I mean, adding a guy like Campazzo would be crazy for that team. And then even Partizan, like you said, they have a great team and they have everything. I even like the young point guard they have, Dar. They have, he's a good player too, but adding like a guy like Campazzo to really any team is a boost. So, but those are the two that stick out for sure.
By the way, what do you think about Campazzo's career in the NBA and let's say his future in the league? Of course, now his future is doubtful since he is considering EuroLeague options. He played 2 seasons for Denver. He averaged 5.3 points, 3.3 assists. But when the most important games of the season kicked in, he was out of rotation. I mean, personally, I'm kind of sad that he's returning to Europe because in today's league, I don't see many players taking the risk that Campazzo took a couple of years ago. I mean, he left Madrid on 6 million euro buyout. Of course, small part, like $700,000 was covered by Nuggets, but the rest was on Campazzo's shoulders. And he earned a little bit above 6 millions in Denver, but there's taxes as well. So he's basically coming back, dropping a couple of millions. And it's not just about the money. The guy was willing to risk so much just to fulfill his NBA dream. And I mean, he had some good games in Denver. Everybody in Nuggets, they love him. And it doesn't mean that he's a bad player and he cannot play in the NBA, but I mean, would you see him any NBA fit, any NBA team, any NBA roster where he could play a, let's say, decent role and could be an important factor or would be a successful player in the league?
I think highly Campazzo. I think he's a good player. But what people got to understand is not every good European player or any player who plays in Europe always translates to the NBA. I do think that his opportunities were limited, but you have to remember he's playing the most difficult position in the world, point guard. So he went to the West Coast. So you're thinking in the West Coast, if you look at Portland, Damian Lillard, look at Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, Ja Morant from Memphis. I mean, it's just loaded with guards who are extremely high level. Like, I never really liked the Denver move. I knew Jamal Murray was hurt and stuff, but they just had so much depth. Like, when you want to get an NBA opportunity, and you're not a vet, but you're not young, you're kind of in that middle area of your career, you probably need to go to a team that's not in win now mode, because a team that's in win now mode is going to play veterans. Even if you might show something in practice, even if you're better than a coach is going to go by what he knows, what he trusts, what he saw. And like I said, Europe success doesn't always translate. So I think that after 2 years in the league, his NBA career is probably bleak now at this point. It's no knock on his skills or his talent. It's just that, after so many opportunities, after so many years, eventually they move on. They go to the next thing. They go to the next big player overseas or the next, rookie. And as you get older, there's less motivation to play a guy, to establish a guy. They would rather play a younger player. He's cheaper. He has more years, whatever the case may be. And he's good with the ball, right? But when you go to the NBA, they have a guy who makes $40 million a year who's good with the ball. They don't need that. They need someone who's just a defensive guy, a spot-up shooter, whatever the case may be. And I think he can't really utilize his full strength and his skill set because they're never going to give a guy who's making $2 million a year the ball. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, that's not how the league works. So I think you'll see him in Europe. I think he's going to exhaust every opportunity, because when you give up the amount of money he gave up to leave Madrid to play to the NBA, that tells me that this was a dream of yours. This was something you always wanted to do. You always wanted to play in the league. And, not many people will give up that type of money, because you're not only giving up money, you're giving up role, you're giving up minutes, and you're giving up guaranteed spots. Like, he's a star in Europe. And, everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different way. There's no right or wrong answer. But I think he would do everything he can to see what's going on with the NBA, because he's already given up so much money. So it's not about the money for him. It's about wanting to play in the league. And now he might have reached a point where he's tired of sitting on the bench. For me personally, I would rather play and be happy than to sit the bench and watch, regardless of the money. It does not matter to me. Like, once you make enough money or a certain level of money, your family's good, you can take care of yourself. Now you need mental happiness and health. So I think he'll be in Europe, but I think it's going to be reluctant, and his agent's going to be doing a lot of work on the back channels, but there's no jobs available for him.
Regarding mental happiness, you mentioned, what do you think about the mental happiness in Milan? You just mentioned that they have so much talent, even though they're missing players right now. Kevin Pangos is injured, but for example, last year, Zenit, they basically played the entire season without the main point guard, Shabazz Napier, Jordan, Billy, who's also right now in Milan. Some other guys stepped in and they kind of covered that hole, and they still kept winning. So, I mean, what do you think? Where's the problem in that team? Why these guys? Some of them, they're good, at least spot up shooters. Why they're not confident in their own shot capabilities? They kind of seem lost on the court. They kind of look like they lost the talent somewhere midway through the season.
I mean,
go ahead. Take it, Jordan.
Okay, no, I was gonna say I think it's tough. After having for a whole team, not just one player. I mean, I'm speaking from a player who has shooting slumps all the time, but as a collective, if the team is having shooting slumps, you're not going to want to force the issue. You want to, and sometimes if everyone's not trying to force the issue, that's kind of what you'll see. But I mean, I know my boy Billy, he'll never lose his confidence of his shot. I know he's been hurt, but a big piece I would have to say is Siobhan Shields being out. I don't think enough people talk about it. Like, I know it's one player, but like, he was a guy who, if stuff got bad, you give him the ball, he's going to score a high volume of buckets for you. He's gonna make those big baskets, things that they're missing. So yeah, they're scoring low points. A lot of the games that they're playing, they're doing okay defensively. The games are really low scoring, but I think the injuries, on top of just kind of letting those rough shooting nights kind of just jumble up and get into your mental, because it happens. But as a collective, you kind of need someone who can just take that relief off you, make those tough shots. And I think that's where Shield comes in.
Yeah, for me personally, I agree 100% with Jordan. Anytime you lose a main piece to a team, it can kind of, demoralize you. And then, if you start to lose a couple games, the energy gets bad, the pressure starts to come, and, guys start to overthink, overanalyze. And this is when experience comes into key. And they have guys who are experienced, but I think they're in roles that they're not accustomed to, just because it's a new team, it's a new system, it's all these new things that you're trying to work through and trying to find where you fit. When you often change players on a team, roles aren't yet established. What does the coach want me to do here? You might have had a whole different role last year on another team. Now you're trying to find, how can I be effective for this coach? And, so that's a big part of the reason. The other part is that with Shields out, now they have no one who demands double teams or extra attention. So when everybody can just play one-on-one defense on their guy, now you're shooting highly contested shots. You're not getting closeout attacks. You're not getting spot up threes, and you're not getting any paint points because they don't have a back to the basket player. They have Davies, but I think he's better in like that pick rolling area. He can do some post ups, but the game's changed to the pick and roll. They don't have an isolation player. The only player who can really manufacture their own points right now is Billy Barron off of a lot of staggers and screens. But in the modern EuroLeague era, teams might adjust their lineups and they might switch out. Now they take away that. If you don't have a guy who can post up and take advantage of the switch, what are you going to do? And then you add to the fact that guys are underperforming. Shooters aren't making shots. They go get a guy like Voigtman, who's been a shooter his whole career, at Cheska and had success. He's shooting 23% from three this year. So then you're like, okay, maybe we can get it from Luigi Datome, a guy that would shoot almost 50% in Fenerbahce. He's shooting 33% from three. And then you continue to go down the line. Devon Hall, who had a great year last year, was unbelievable. He's shooting 25% from twos and 29% from threes. Then you continue to keep going. Like, I can do this all day. Kevin Pangos is shooting 28% from three. And I say this to say that it's not all on Messina. It's not on that. Like, when you sign players, you're expecting them to do what they've done the majority of their career. Like, I look at your career, I look at what you've done, and I'm not saying they can't turn it around. They can. Guys go through slumps. Guys go through things. But when you're a guy who's not a defensive player and you're an offensive player, when you slump, it's different. If Jordan Loyd misses shots, it's different because he plays defense. He makes some things happen off the pick and roll. It's different. But when you're a guy who brings strictly offense to a certain team and you can't provide that, what is a coach to do? So, these are the problems here. And, you continue to go down the line. Deshaun Thomas has not been utilized much this year, but he's also shooting 30% from three. So the confidence is gone. Guys are timid. Guys are second guess. They're not having fun out there. They don't look happy. And, it's a combination of adjusting the roles, the Shields factor, and guys just underperforming. Some players might have to get in the gym, lock in, distract, get away from the noise. Don't distract yourself with any of the outside noise, any of the hate, and just focus on your craft.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way to get over the shooting slump, right? You probably, as a scorer, you also had moments like that throughout your career.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I've had plenty. I will have, and I've always had a lot of shooting slumps. But this is something I've done my whole life. So I don't think those guys over there are like doubting their skills or doubting why they're there. They're all like we said, great players. You just gotta kind of like E said, just not pay attention too much to the media, and those guys will turn it around. I'm confident that in the games coming forward, they're gonna really play with a chip on their shoulder, and just like any other player would. So I always say, never too high, never too low. Whenever you're struggling or whenever things, try to stay just even keel, because there's going to be times where you feel like you're on top of the world, and there's going to be times where you feel like you're under it. So, just keep doing your routine. Those guys are professionals. They're great players, and I think they'll turn it around.
Yeah, the other team that is going through a difficult moment right now is Maccabi Tel Aviv. They've lost 5 of the last 6 games. They dropped to 9th place. And there are already some reports in Israel, for example, by Moses Barda from One, saying that Kattash is on a hot seat and that Maccabi, they are considering at least 4 candidates. The list includes Pablo Lasso, Sergio Hernandez, Igor Milicic, and Yanis Sferopoulos. Do you think the coach Kattash is the first to blame for the recent stretch? And just in general, are you kind of surprised? Probably you got used to it, but what do you think about the patience in Europe regarding head coaching job?
I think for me, and this goes back to my never too high, never too low comment, but I do think that in Europe there's a tendency to really get rid of coaches or players with a quickness, and sometimes coaches or even players aren't able to really show their full potential, or after 3 or 4 or 5 games, and it's like, you can go on a winning streak after that, you can win a couple games after that, but in that amount of time, I don't feel like it's I don't know how to say it, but I think people need more time to be able to show what they really can do. I'm not a big believer in, first 2 games and we lost 3 or 4 games in a row. It's like the end of the world. But from a management standpoint, I'm sure they're not thinking like that. They're like, this every game matters, which it does. And we're not winning, so we have to do something. And so from a management standpoint, I feel like that's the mindset. But for me being a player and seeing, having a lot of different teammates, a lot of different coaches, and seeing some coaches get fired or some players get cut, not even before December, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe they were underperforming, but, who knows if they were to turn it around, right after that, or if they were given another chance, or if they just made some different adjustments. So I'm more on the side of, people getting a little more leniency. I really do feel like, that the leash is short, to say, and I understand that, but from my point of view, I would love to see, guys get a little more time.
From what I see, I don't think the coach needs fired. They were fortunate with the start of the EuroLeague schedule. 4 out of their first 5 games were at home. They're one of the strongest home courts. They always sell out. It's a passionate crowd. And now they're just hitting that road schedule, which is expected. When you have a new team, you have new players. I mean, not just 1 or 2 players. I mean, they went and changed the entire roster. And now, okay, you lose at Munich. Okay, you can't have this loss. This happens. But it was on the road. You lose at Red Star. On the road, another great, great team. You win at home against Olympiacos. You lose at Partizan on the road. And the only game that they lost at home, in the last 4 was against Barcelona, which is, one of the stronger teams throughout the competition. And then you get smacked by Baskonia. But once again, you're on the road. So I think what you saw was a team that plays well at home with the crowd, with the energy, who has youth, who has athleticism. And then you saw the team that's new, that's still adjusting the roles, just still trying to figure out who they are in this system, losing in a hostile environment. So the coach does not need fired. And for Maccabi to even fire him is an overreaction. You haven't made the EuroLeague playoffs since 2015. Let's not act like you're used to being there. If you go by tradition in the past, yes, you're used to success. But for the last, 8-9 years, you haven't sniffed the playoffs. So it would be an extreme.
They made the playoffs last year, but of course it was also related to the fact that 3 Russian teams were out.
Yeah. So can we really count this? When the competition is changing, you eliminate teams. I don't know. Maybe they can count this if they feel good about this. But anytime you remove teams from a competition, to me, I feel like it's tainted. So when the competition had all the teams, they haven't made the playoffs, and I just feel like they've shown who they are. They've shown the potential. They're going to hit a rough patch. Now, with Poitras out 4 to 6 months, it's going to happen. There's ups and downs throughout the entire EuroLeague season, but you're still in a solid position. You've defended your home court. You got to get better on the road. Once you do that, you'll be better. And you need to find a third consistent scorer. Lorenzo Brown's an excellent player, one of the best point guards in Europe. He's doing his thing. He's leading the team. He's been excellent. Could cut down on the turnovers, but everything else, he plays beautiful basketball for them. Continuing off of that run off the Eurobasket, Wade Baldwin has been a really good player for them. But I think sometimes there's been, some lack of a third scoring option. And I think that's what you saw also with some of Efes' struggle. They only have 2 scoring options, consistently. And that's why they lose. It's hard, when teams are scoring 85 points a game to win with 2 players, even if they're great, even if they're both scoring 20 apiece, that's only 40 points. Where are you going to get your offensive productivity from? And I think once they find who that third scorer is supposed to be, I don't know if it's Bonzi. It could have been Alex. I don't know who it's going to be. But when that player emerges, you'll see them start to win more. You'll see them start to show more consistency, and they'll probably be better on the road.
I actually think that the main problem is not the on offensive end, but in defense. They're 17th in the defensive rating. They allowed 116 points against Baskonia. Bayern scored 98, Partizan 96. And in some cases, you still see this, miscommunication in defense. Some guys, they're still probably trying to find this chemistry, especially defensively, and they still have these loopholes that you should eliminate probably quicker when we're witnessing right now. Although I agree with Eric, I mean, they changed like almost how many, like 10 players this offseason, so it's a natural part of the process. But looking for the management perspective, probably these are the problems they can see, that just like what Red Star did. Oh, let's bring some disciplined coach, some straight hand to fix those things on the court, and it actually helped Red Star. But at this point, I mean, if Maccabi, from what I hear, this thing that Kattash is on the hot seat, it's real. And around the team, there is this feeling that at any given moment, the coach might be fired. And probably, he's kind of counting his last days in terms of every game might be last for him unless he starts winning. I try to check their schedule, and it's pretty tough. I mean, they're hosting Valencia. Valencia is a very unpredictable team this year. They can beat everybody. Then they're going on a road trip to Milan, to Bologna, and Alba. So it's another tough stretch for Maccabi, given the fact that Alex Poitras just been sidelined for almost the entire season. Probably Wade Baldwin will be back on track. We saw that Darren Hilliard just came out of this suspension, so it's a tricky situation for them. But if Maccabi will make this head coaching move, it's gonna be their 8th new head coach since the new EuroLeague format kicked in 2016 and 17 season, and actually ties for the first place among all the EuroLeague teams. Red Star already had 8 different coaches as well. And in Maccabi's case, can we say that all these, head coaching changes help them? I'm not so sure. I cannot say that. I mean, I always believe that it's better for you to invest more money into this position to start some kind of the project, to give the team for somebody you would trust for like 3 years. You cannot sign the head coach for 2 years. You cannot give him 10 new players and decide his fate in December after your main point guard like Lorenzo Brown joins the team in the end of September after a long Eurobasket experience. I mean, I just think that it's unfair. And I mean, when you look at the standings, if I would be an alien who just comes here in planet of Earth and sees EuroLeague standings, I see Maccabi at 9th place. I think that's a good result for Maccabi. I mean, the race is still tight from the bottom to the top. So I would be more patient, but we're definitely missing patience here in Europe in EuroLeague.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to add, right? But by the way, what do you think about this Darren Hilliard's situation?
Oh, yeah. When you bring it up, that's what I'll start thinking again. Like, that's a situation to me that, you can't have. You're already struggling. You're trying to find a rhythm. You're down, a backcourt player. You have a more than capable player right there. That's the guy who I thought would be the third scorer, but the minutes haven't been there or the opportunity. And he's a good player. And from what I hear, based on everything about his character, everything, people vouching for him, I hear he's a good guy. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. But if I'm a coach who's on the hot seat, who possibly could be fired, and there's a guy who could help me win, we're going to hash that out. We're going to have a conversation. There's going to be some type of meeting between me and him, and we're going to have to get on the same page, because there's no point to to have an ego or to prove something or to prove a point and lose games, because ultimately you end up hurting the team, you hurt the fan base, and you take away opportunities from a player. So I don't know who's right, who's wrong, if it's the coach, if it's the player, I don't know what. But based on, track record, I haven't heard anything bad about Hillard as a person.
What was the situation exactly?
They lost to Jerusalem in Israeli derby, and a few hours after the game, Darren posted something on Twitter, like quoting Tupac from his interview, "Real eyes realize real lies." And from what we all understood from that suspension, probably the team or the head coach, as it was reported on Israeli media, thought that it was about him, because Darren had a tough game. He scored only 2 points in 10 minutes. So as the coach, I think that it was a part of the being frustrated. Coach is in a hot seat. He's losing a biggest local game. You see your player tweeting, and you all think that everybody just tries to attack you. So maybe he took that personal, but I don't believe that was the case.
There's got to be more though, right? Like that.
You gotta be.
That's enough to suspend a player.
That's why I asked, because
I don't know. I'm just speculating. Maybe there was some, maybe they went after each other. Maybe there was some back and forth during the game. Maybe he said something, or coach thought that he said something on the bench. I mean, maybe it was just the top of the iceberg. I don't know.
But I mean, like Eric said, I think the biggest thing is just to handle stuff like that internally, especially something so minor like that. Like you said, we don't know everything, but just to handle something like that, have a meeting, hash it out, be grown-ups, you know what I'm saying? Be mature, talk it out, hash it out, and then be done with it. Because, now it's like the suspension, that raises even more questions, and then losing games raises more questions. So it's like, it'd have been nice to, if that's all it was. And, we know DH, like great guy, everybody loves him, great character and everything. So it's very interesting to something like that. And even if that was just a tweet, it's like, there's way bigger fish in the sea, bigger problems. So that's frustrating.
Did you ever have any problems over Twitter post in your career, or you had your teammates that got hurt by something they've tweeted?
Yeah, I mean, I've not me personally. I mean, I'm sure some coaches and stuff, they always, when I first started my career, I think everybody wanted you just to be 100% basketball. But as time has moved on, I think people start to understand that, there's only so much basketball in a day. Like, you can have other interests, outside of working, outside of doing things. Who knows? I mean, I haven't had no problems. My coach is cool. We have understanding. They know I'm professional. I do my job every day. I come in and do the work first. But like, some coaches do have a problem with players who potentially could get distracted. I mean, I had a teammate who, was active on social media in years past, and our coaches did not like it. Our management did not like it. And then it depends too on like your following. And then if you happen to be in a relationship and that person is also, with a big following or famous, it could be an issue. And I've seen it, be a problem. But, if you're doing the right things, coming in the gym, getting your reps in, they're not going to say anything if you're playing well. Like, I've been on teams where if guys are playing well, a coach doesn't care if you go out, if you, partake in beverages, your nightlife, they don't care. If you're playing good, everything's okay. But when you're playing bad or the team is losing, now everything is under the microscope. So I always tell young players, if you lose, just don't go out that night. If that's what you want to do, like, just don't. But if you win, all is forgiven.
It's true, man. We are under a definitely, everyone's looking at you. Everything you do is magnified, no matter what you say, no matter what how you respond to fans. I learned that when I was in Valencia. We played Fenerbahce, and we had one. I was like a controversial call. Basically, I went to the basket, hit like a game-winning layup, but it could have been a charge. And I remember the EuroLeague came out with like they were like, "Oh, this should have been called a charge," so this basket shouldn't have counted. And then I quote tweeted and put the little walking emoji, just like minding my business. And like, that's it. It was just like a couple emojis. And, the Fener fans went crazy. And I just realized, like, man, my tweets, they have a little bit of power now. I gotta pay attention to what I mean, they were killing me for like a week, and I didn't even say anything bad about them. I didn't do anything. But man, they really let me have it. So like, I try to do a good job of, making sure I be careful what I put out there. But guys shouldn't feel like they're walking on eggshells at the same time. They should be able to say what they want to say. Like Eric said, basketball is a short part of it's not our life. It's just what we do. It's our job. Everybody has their own, things that they like. So, it's a little different in Europe, and you kind of got to, it's not like it is in the States, but it is what it is.
Could you guys give me your top 3 Twitter accounts you must follow if you're the EuroLeague fan?
Oh, for sure. Especially when he was playing Malcolm Delaney. He's nonstop comedy. He's honest. He says what he thinks, and he doesn't care. And so, like, I like that just because, like, it's hard to get unfiltered opinions. It's not easy for players to say what they think. Like, you could get a lot of backlash. I say what I think on the air. Sometimes people got something to say. Sometimes fans get mad, but this is just my take. Just like you watch a game, you have your opinion, you have your views. I have mine as well. Mike James, for sure. Comedy. He says what he thinks. He's hilarious on there. And then third one, this is tough. Those 2 stand out. They're in a class of their own.
Yeah, I was about to say those are the only 2 I can think of. Honestly, they are in a class of their own for sure. And
Will Clyburn is also hilarious. He's not very active on his own Twitter profile, but he likes to reply something. So he's also worth to follow.
I seen the one with DeColo when they said that something like DeColo couldn't beat Finner or something. No, it was Efes. DeColo couldn't beat Efes since Ataman's been there or something. And then he retweeted it and just put 2019 with like the finger on the chin. And then Will retweeted it and put the laughing emojis because he also was part of the 2019 Cheska championship team. But that was funny as well.
Crazy.
You mentioned Efes. I thought that they were back on track, beating some good teams. Their winning streak started with Barcelona, then this Olympiacos game, the replay of last year's Final Fours semifinal. But then these guys faced you in Karşıyaka, Izmir, and Eric McCollum. Eric, what do you think in general? Did you see a different team? Did you see different Efes team when on TV in the beginning of the EuroLeague season? What main differences you notice in their game?
I mean, you saw a lot of things you see in the EuroLeague. I mean, they're 2 players, they're main guys, they're dominant. Micic was excellent. Will Clyburn was excellent. They were getting to the lane and finishing. Will was posting. Micic was, finding his teammates, driving. I mean, they were tough. I mean, if you check the stats, I think Micic had 36 points, maybe 9 assists. So, I mean, he did his part. Clyburn had 24 and like 7. Like, I mean, we were trying to do, different looks, different things, but they're good players. And it gets to the point where, we just made a decision that, those 2 are going to probably get theirs. We just can't make it easy, but we need to make sure no one else gets off. And I think we really locked in on Bobois. Like, that was a key focus to make sure, because he's that third option that really gets him going. And when he's hitting those shots off those staggers, off those screens, it can be a nightmare for you because, as you've seen, Micic and Clyburn are capable of scoring 50 every night. And if you let Bobois get that 20, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So we really focused on him. We stopped him from getting a rhythm, limited his shots off those staggers and those screens, and that was successful for us. And then we attacked him, defensively. Even though he's a good defensive player, he's solid. Anytime a guy, is good on offense, you need to make them work on the other end, just kind of take away your shooting, especially a 3-point shooter, because that's a shot that requires a lot of legs. So, that kind of was our mindset going into it. And, just being solid defensively. Don't let, Tibor Pleiss get those easy pick and pop shots. Don't let Bobois get those staggers. Take away those looks. And I think it helped us too that Mbaye was sick. So he didn't play that game. So now they miss, their stretch 4, someone who can kind of move laterally, who can, do some damage on switching defense, but also has that athleticism to rebound. But I think they're a good team. I think you're going to see them turn the corner. Shane's close to returning. They're really just missing him. Once Shane comes back, I mean, it's going to be a well-oiled machine. Now you got 3 guys who are pretty much tough to contain, who require extra defensive attention, but you can't double 3 players. So, like, you're going to have to pick and choose what you're going to do. And you're going to see them probably kind of similar to that Monaco team that Jordan has. I mean, you got 3 guys who can create, who can play one-on-one, or who can play the pick and roll. They're a little bit taller, but, something like that. And they're surrounded by shooters from the 5 position to 4. And I think that's all it is. We've seen it before in the past. With Shane out, they struggle. It's just what it is. And he'll come back and he'll be refreshed and rejuvenated.
Man, you can never count that team out, man. No matter how they start, it's just like it doesn't matter what's going on in the year, what time of the year. It's like I'm always like they're going to be around. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the year, they're going to be there. So, I mean, with Shane coming back, I mean, obviously that's going to be a crazy boost. And then, like you said, to me, Will has been top 2 best players of the year so far in EuroLeague. So, if not the best,
shooter now. Oof.
He's a shooter now, right? I mean, like, he's always been playing even last year in the VTB finals, man. Like, just the way he was pulling up for threes and just scoring at like 5 different levels. I mean, it's insane. So, I mean, just to bring Shane to the mix is a cheat code in itself. And then, you know, obviously they have the same pieces. And then Boubois, I mean, he's, you know, not talked about as much, but man, he's like one of the best shooters in Europe. And man, I mean, like dead eye shooter. So, I mean, they have everything, no matter if they go on a 5-game losing streak, 5-game, whatever. I mean, they're always going to be there, and they have every piece they need to get back to where they want.
If we have Ellie, you and Mike playing against Will, Vas, and Shane 3-on-3, what's your way to beat them?
Oh, well, you know, now I was just giving them some props, but, you know, we're going to handle that. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about my guys, my brothers, you know, so we're going to be all right. We're a little undersized, you know, but, you know, compared to maybe Will, but, you know, 3-on-3, that's going to be a lot of, well, whoever gets it really probably just going to shoot it. So, I mean, whoever's feeling good, that they just keep getting the ball and see if the other one can stop them. You know, it'll probably be the first to miss.
No, Will is awesome. I mean, during this 4-game winning streak, he's averaging over 23 points per game, which is unbelievable. I mean, he became almost 50% 3-point shooter. And I remember what kind of adjustments and improvement he did compared to his days in Germany or in Darussafaka, for example. He was just slightly above 30% 3-point shooter in EuroLeague, in Eurocup at all levels. When he joined CSKA, when Dimitris Itoudis started coaching him, I mean, his numbers improved significantly. His average shooting beyond the arc in Moscow through 5 years was like 36%, I think, which is already makes him decent shooter because most of the shots he's taking, these are not open looks. These are tough shots, especially now. I mean, he's shooting the ball like LeBron James. I mean, he's very tough to guard, and that's what Olympiacos had to deal with. I mean, I think that Efes basically won the game in the 4th quarter because Will started doing Will Clyburn things. He was just unguardable. And that was tough, and that will be tough to handle during the season. But I think that the main difference for Efes, a lot of different things goes in this combination. For example, it starts from the team meeting the team had before Barcelona game. So I would call it a mental adjustment. There was a team meeting. There was I would say a meeting between Will, Shane, Vasa, how they should play, how they should improve their game. The coaching staff, they started to make some more adjustments on their opponents, how to get some interesting ideas into the game. And I also noticed what they did. They put Ante Žižić out of rotation. He was playing way more before this winning streak. He was playing almost 18 minutes per game, but now he's basically the third center on Efes. And I believe to this day, no matter how much input Ante Žižić gives offensively, that he's skilled post-up player, that he's a good roller, that he's a big body in the block. I mean, it's Brian Dunstan and Tibor Pleiss. I think they're just a better fit next to players like Clyburn, Micic, or Bobois, or Elijah Bryant. Also, he's bringing his role. I think that Amat Mbaye, he's also very important by stretching the floor and doing some, hustle plays, like few blocks he did against Barcelona. So, I mean, this rotation, not the role players, these assets, these pieces, I think that they made the difference, adjusting their game and being closer to Vasa's and Clyburn's level.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Like, Will Clyburn's play has been phenomenal. I always thought the last 4 or 5 years he was the best 3 in Europe. And now he's just elevated. I mean, to the point where he was just shooting the ball so well, and me playing against him 4 years in Russia, a year in Turkey, like I know Will and I know his game. I had to message him and I just told him, like, I don't know what you did over the summer, but you are a bona fide shooter now, because he's always been impossible to contain getting to the rim. You know, you put somebody small on him, he goes to the block. You put somebody tall on him, he pulls him out, beats him off the dribble. You know, he was really good finishing at the rim, dunking, little touch, float shots, hooks. But now he's shooting step backs, pull-ups, mid-range games. I told him, I said, I don't know where this came from, but hey, I can tell you put the time in the gym and it's paying off. And I think, you know, I'm just imagining if Efes wasn't able to get him this summer, you know, they would have been in a world of trouble. But they're going to be fine. They're going to get it together. They're going to continue to play. I think Zizic coming out was strategic to keep the paint open for Micic and Clyburn, you know, for that spacing and that shooting. I think Zizic has been good, but Ataman really likes a 5-man shooter. And, you know, obviously he can't do it for 40 minutes, but, you know, with Plyce's size, you know, it gives him that kind of flexibility. And anytime you're in the struggle, your comfort is to go back to what works, right? So you go back to the guys who you won with. You go back to the guys who you've had success with. You know, as a coach, it's what I would do too. I've been, you know, in battles with you. I've been in the war with you. I know, you know, how you react under pressure. You know, sometimes you get a new player on a new team. You don't really know. You know, you don't trust them as much yet because it's still early. But I do believe those guys will gain his trust. And right now, he's just challenging them. I played with Ataman for 2.5 seasons, and you know, it's never uncommon for him to go to the media, to issue challenges, sometimes to, you know, to say something about your performance. I mean, he does it to the best player, you know, from the MVP, he does it from the last man on the bench. So, you know, it's all about your mindset, how you respond. So I hope these guys are tough mentally and, you know, and they take it as a challenge rather than the disrespect. You know, if you do take it as disrespect, you know, just, you know, use that to fuel you, you know, when you're in the gym, when you're on the court, you know, those type of things. But, you know, Ataman, he does a lot of mind games and mind tricks to kind of motivate his players. And I think this is what you're seeing with the call outs and the challenges lately.
Yeah, I think it happened with Micic and 4 of the 5 starting 5 players in the game against Olympiacos. They were subbed out after 2 minutes of the game
really?
in the first quarter. Yeah. And, you know, what's funny, of course, for example, Micic, he had a horrible first quarter. He scored like 0 points. He made like 3 turnovers, but he finished the game close to the triple-double. And he was also important in the fourth quarter. How do you guys react to that kind of coaching? You know, how you approach those situations when you know that you're important on your team and your head coach, you know, subs you out after 2 minutes of play?
I gotta say, it starts with the maturity factor. Even for me, like this is what 4 years now in playing EuroLeague, or my 4th year. So it's like, you really have to have that maturity and that mental toughness to know, like, okay, this is something else going on. You know, even if you're not playing well, you need to sit down. You know, like I remember when we played Efes this past beginning of the year, this year. I mean, I had a terrible game. I didn't play well, and I didn't finish the game. And so it's like, I can't be mad at coach for not finishing. You know, it's myself. You know, if I'm not playing well, I'll be the first to tell you, take me out, put someone else in. Or if I'm gonna be out there, I'm gonna try to find something else I can do. So if I have a rough start and, you know, and coach takes me out first 2-3 minutes, yeah, it's going to suck. I'm not going to say it's like, you're just going to be like, oh, okay, whatever. You're going to kind of be upset. Obviously, you're going to be like, you want to play. Every hooper wants to hoop. But it's a maturity factor. As years have went on for me, I realized, like, okay, you're going to go back in the game, you know, calm down. And once you go back in the game, focus at the task at hand, do your job. And then usually, you know, if you have a rough start, you can still finish the game, you know, with the amount of minutes that I'm getting, you can still finish the game with a decent game, even if it's not just the way you're shooting. So I'm not going to sit here and act like it's just going to be, you know, flowers and peachy, you know, once you come out the game early. But sometimes that does motivate you, kind of like what you just said. And it lights a fire under you, and you come out and you play a lot better. So sometimes you need a little bit of a boost, and sometimes I can give it to you.
Eric, were you challenged by Ataman when you played for Galatasaray?
All the time. I remember we were playing in the Euro Cup. We had just made it to the Euro Cup finals. We hadn't played a game yet. We had a Turkish league game, and I was playing in the game, and then I felt like a like somebody kicked me in my leg. I turned around and nobody was there, and I had a strained calf muscle, luckily. And I was scared, I didn't know what was wrong. And of course, we got the Euro Cup finals coming up. I literally had like maybe 6 or 7 days before the game came, and they were saying that I had a grade 1 or a grade 2. It was in the middle. It wasn't quite 1, but it wasn't quite 2. And they were like, you really probably need 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm thinking like, oh man, I don't have time. And I just got MVP. First team, one of the top scorers, whatever, like had a great season. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to try to play. Obviously my team knows I'm hurt. I didn't practice all week. And then I just, the day before the game, I get out there, I got my sleeve on. And obviously I don't play that well. He knows I'm hurt. I play like, 17 minutes. I'm not explosive. I'm not quick. I'm not able to get to my spots like I want, but I'm fighting. I'm trying. Maybe I finished the game with like 6 points or 8 points. And I was averaging, like 19 or 20. And he goes to the media and he says, our MVP did not play like an MVP tonight. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I have a torn calf muscle and I'm trying to do everything I can for you. But me, I didn't get, too mad because I knew he believed in me as a player because I was hurt and I didn't practice all week. And he still put me on the court. And I know he just thought highly of me, but I was younger, so I wasn't as level-headed as now. So I was a little bit upset. So like we had like 5 days in between the next game. So I got to rest and get there. And so the whole time I'm thinking like, oh, he got me fucked up. When this game start, like I'm about to
He was on go.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
And so like, but he was smart. He rested me. I didn't play much in the first half because now we're probably at like day 13, day 12. So I'm starting to feel a little better. I'm starting to feel good. And I don't play much in the first half. And I think in the fourth quarter, I scored like 13 points or 14 points, have like a couple rebounds. Like I just take the game over. And then when I'm hitting shots, like big shots, boom, crowd's going crazy. Of course, we win the championship. And as I'm hitting shots, I just whisper in his ear, do I look like an MVP now? And then he started laughing. He started laughing and he hugged me. And so like that was kind of how we go. And usually like Ataman, you don't really have like a lot of communication with him. Like it's just not. He just, he does his job, has his things, but like a lot of players, you don't have communication with him. But we won a title, and that was like the most conversation we had, So it was just an interesting moment. But that was when he challenged me, and I was a little upset, but it ended up, working because I was a competitor, and I took it and I used it the right way. But if I didn't have the right mindset, that could have went a whole different direction.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you mentioned that you texted Will about his 3-point shooting. What did he respond?
He told me that he said what changed for him was the year he was at Drusafaka and they played Real Madrid, and he said they were guarding him in the paint with the tall guy. So like kind of like how Ben Simmons was guarded. So they just stayed back and they were daring him to shoot. And he was like, what is going on? No way. He said once that happened, I said, I got to fix my shot. So he got in the gym, started shooting, started working. And then he just said that every year he wanted to add something more. And this was the year, after he got comfortable, shooting all the spot ups, doing all those things. This was the year he wanted to add the mid-range. Because I told him I had never seen him. I've been playing against you for 6 years. I've never seen you shoot mid-range pull-ups and mid-range step-backs. I told him, I said, it looked like you're stealing my moves. Like I told him to stop. But he really put the work in. And I told him I was proud of it because anytime I see a guy like, hone their craft, do those things, I'm like, man, hey, you look good out there. Like I'm a guy that shows love. And if you play at a certain level, I'm going to commend you. And he's doing that. But he put the time in. And, you can blame Real Madrid for the new and improved Will Clyburn because you're the reason that he stepped up and said, I'm going to get this jumper right.
That's a good statement. By the way, remembering all those good times, what do you remember about Kruno Simon? I was actually surprised that he got his jersey retired in Efes arena because usually, only these top scorers, legendary players, the biggest stars of the game, they got this ceremony. But now they started from Kruno Simon. And I can see that every year they will, hang up those jerseys to the rafters of Micic, Larkin, I don't know, Dunston, Singleton, a lot of players of this, one of the greatest EuroLeague franchise teams we're witnessing at the moment. And I don't know Kruno Simon personally, but probably he is the best combination for me of skill, of reading the game, IQ of the game, being a great teammate, good teammate, and at the same time enjoying the life outside the floor. Did you have any experiences with Kruno, Eric?
Oh yeah, for sure. So Kruno was a guy who, he didn't like practice. Not a lot of us do, but he really didn't like practice. And he's a guy that he looks like a guy who, works a 9 to 5. You would never think that he's a basketball player, but like he gets on the court, he can see everything. Like on a pick and roll, corner pass, wing pass behind him, the big man. And like I never seen the guy so like slow, not as athletic, but continue to find like spaces and cracks in the offense. And like he's just a really smart player. Like, what he maybe lacked in some of the physical attributes and athleticism, he more than had an intelligence and skill set. Like excellent shooter. He has an amazing like left hand running hook. Like I actually started practicing it because of him, because he would get in the lane and he would get stuck and he would just like reach back like Magic or Kareem and just do this running hook. And he had the ability to bank it or float it, like anything. And I was like, man, that's a good shot. That's unblockable. So I just started working on my right hand running hook when I get to the lane. So like, but he's a guy that like you would completely underestimate, but he's super intelligent. He was a good role piece for Efes, during their runs. And, he kind of, was an integral part, of some of those championships with those guys. They had really good role players those years. They had those big two in Micic and Larkin, but, he was a guy that stayed, throughout Efes, through the ups and downs. And I think they just rewarded him because they brought those 2 championships. He was there for the low points, for high points, as well as Dunston. So, like you said, if they retired his, I imagine Dunston's is soon to follow. He's been the captain. He's been there probably 7 years. And then there's no question, Micic and Shane's jerseys will be tired. And, who knows if Clyburn stays in Efes long enough, and he's able to bring some hardware, maybe he can, be along in those lines.
When you mentioned all those things about Kruno, actually, when I was listening to you, I kind of thought that the same profile belongs to Sasha Vezenkov. You would never say that he is the potential MVP. He is not the most athletic. He's not the most explosive. He's not the fastest guy on the floor, but he's so efficient. I mean, he's so smart. He's a great teammate. What do you guys think about his MVP case?
I mean, you can't argue with the numbers, man. I mean, sometimes I'll come after, I'll check the stats, and I mean, it's crazy. And then didn't he just score, like, he didn't dribble one time or something? He had so many 20,
like 24 points.
I mean, that speaks to the system as well. How great Olympiacos have, running their plays and but looking for him, but also it's on him. He's super efficient, and then it makes me think about, guys like Mirotic, how efficient he is. And then, Vezenkov, but like those guys, when you're efficient and you're doing it night in, doesn't matter who you're playing, doesn't matter the situation. I mean, you're always going to have an MVP case, and then your team is winning. You have a top team, they made the Final Four last year. So, you already know where my MVP, my front runner is, where that is, my boy, Mike, but obviously Vezenkov has a good case.
Yeah. To me, he's special. He's the best 4 in Europe, outside of Mirotic. Because, he's like a 4.5. Mirotic is so big, he can do everything. Yeah. But why I like Vezenkov is because he's a 4 that is an excellent shooter. But most 4s who can shoot the basketball, they don't rebound, right? This is a guy who gets 8 rebounds a game, who shoots the 3, 41%. He shoot almost 87, 88% from the line, 67 from twos. And what separates him from the other 4s is he has the quickest release. I'm telling you, like when he gets out of those screens, he's really good footwork, setting his screen, getting his feet out, popping. And that release from catch to the release point is lightning quick. So he can get off anyone. And he has an excellent pump fake, and he's good in closeout situations. So he's good at attacking, and he has a nice little float game in there. But his numbers are outrageous. I mean, 20 points a game, eight rebounds, and he's showing a little bit of playmaking, 2 assists a game, which is, a guy who doesn't dribble much, to get 2 assists a game. It shows, you're looking for your teammates too. So I think just to see his growth has been special, because I remember when he was at Barcelona, and I didn't really think he was that good of a player just because of the struggles. And as we've seen, sometimes, when you're young, you're in a system, it doesn't fit you, or, they're not tailoring it to your strength, you might struggle. And then as I started to see his growth and see him blossom, I was like, okay, so I see the talent. I see the potential. I see what Barcelona saw. Maybe he wasn't ready at that time, but you see that growth. And, to see that jump he took, it shows me it's a guy who has work ethic. I don't know him personally, but you don't just improve like this in such a small window when you're talking about 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years. His growth has been enormous, and anything he gets, he deserves. And for sure, he will be an NBA because his height, you're talking about somebody who's 6'9", who can shoot it like that with a quick trigger, the way the modern NBA game is. Sacramento will come get him immediately, ASAP, because size and shooting always translates everywhere in the world.
Always.
Oh, so you think he would be a good fit for Sacramento? Even for this winning Sacramento team?
I think De'Aaron Fox is really fast and quick and good at creating things for his teammates. I think it would have been better if Sacramento starts to lose a little bit. Maybe not be the losing Sacramento, but like the Sacramento who's in the play-in or just missing the play-in, because they're more likely to play guys. But when you're in win-now mode, it's harder to fight into that rotation, because if they have too much success, they're going to think they don't need to make many changes. But if you fall short, teams are going back to the drawing board. What can we do? And that's where he can have a great opportunity. But the way he shoots, you're going to find a way to get him on the floor. I mean, you see it with Strauss in Miami. He's not the same height, but he's a guy that just shoots. Or Nang in Philly. Anytime you're a guy who can really shoot the basketball, they will find a spot for you on that floor. Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but he's going to find a space on that floor to give those star players, those guys who make 40, 45 million a year, to give them room to operate.
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, Jordan, I have an argument for you to share with Mike for this MVP race stuff, because I remember he was very close of getting the MVP award last year, but Nikola Mirotic got it. So Sasha Vezenkov scores 17.5 points in first 3 quarters, but in the last quarter, he averages only 2.4 points, while the best players, they average around 6. And actually, Sasha didn't connect a single 3-pointer so far in the 4 quarters of the game. So can you give the MVP award for the player who's not, making the most important shots in the 4th quarter? That's the argument that Mike James can use for his case.
For sure. Yeah, Mike gonna have a few arguments. I'm sure he'll have more than one. But yeah, I mean, if they get that technical with it, you obviously want a player that's, shows up in the crunch time. And not to say that he doesn't, Vezenkov, but he has a loaded team, and I'm sure other guys are doing things. But Mike's gonna get to his stuff 1 through 4 quarters. He's gonna do what he has to do. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of the year. Mike got the MVP of the month last month, but the cool thing about it is Mike is really, embracing the flow of the team. He's embracing getting others involved. He's embracing kind of being that leader. So it's really cool to see him, be really efficient, really play well, and maybe a little less minutes than last year. He's still, I think from the minutes he averaged, but just to see him in the flow of the game, get to his shots and get other guys involved has been really cool. So he's been fun to play with.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race. I think that it also will be related to the fact who will make the Final Four, whether it will be Monaco or Olympiacos. I think the one who will lead his team into the Final Four, I hope both of the teams will make it. It might decide this MVP award nominee.
Winning is everything.
Yeah.
And just the last thing, Jordan, you're actually facing the hottest EuroLeague team at the moment, Real Madrid. They won 6 or 7. No, they won 6 in a row. and they beat some really good teams on the way, including Fenerbahce, although they were missing a lot of important players last week. But anyways, what do you think? What makes them so dangerous, so good at the moment?
We all actually watched the Fener and Madrid game, and one thing you notice when you play Fener is how much size they have. They're a huge team, probably one of the bigger teams I ever played against, and Madrid is a huge team, so they had size to match that and match up well versus Fener. And then when Madrid is making shots, they made a lot of threes. When Deck is hitting threes, and then taking them in the paint, just being really diverse. I felt like that game they were really hitting them from all angles, and Fener really had no answer. But I mean, Madrid has just about every piece they need, obviously. And then, I always talk about Tavares. He's literally a one-man defense, man. Like, he clogs that paint. He can switch on the guards. He moves his feet well. And they have everything they need. So, we haven't started game planning for them yet. We have a big game versus Asvel tomorrow first. But, they're a hot team, obviously. And we have to try to find ways to take them off the offensive boards because they do that really well. They're physical. And, we got to make shots. When we go to Madrid, you have to be really confident, take those shots, hit those shots, and see what happens.
Yeah, I think at one point against Fenerbahce, they have a 5 with Canan Musa as a point guard. I think that Alberto Balte was also playing next to him. There was Gabriel Deg as the 3-man, Petr Corneli as a 4-man, and Walter Tavares. I mean, all those guys, they're above 2 meters and way more than 2 meters. So
you gotta, and that's the thing. And then I think for us, we have a team that can run. We haven't been that great in transition this year yet, but I think the team like that, you really want to try to get up and down. You don't want to really necessarily get into punch for punch. We've seen how that goes when they play Partizan, how they can really score with the best of you, but not necessarily just transition buckets, but just making them move side to side, trying to tire them out. And then as the second half comes, just try to keep pushing. So it's tough. Like you said, they can start biggest lineup probably in Europe, but they have their loopholes, and we'll try to find them.
Eric, what would be your advice for Monaco coaching staff?
Yeah, hit me, Eric, because Eric's been on ESPN. He's done the commentating everywhere. So, Eric, you got something, man? You tell me.
I think the biggest thing is to play in transition. You want to wear out Tavares. You want to take away his ability, to clog the paint. With you guys' speed, you can create a lot of problems. I would set a lot of high ball screens to get you guys coming downhill at Tavares, where you have that deep 3 pull up. It's hard to shoot any mid-range shots on Tavares because you can't see the rim. But the 3-point shot, you can do something with that. Snake dribble will be there a lot. So especially if you're coming downhill, the bigs need to hold their screens. This is a game where they don't need to roll right away. Hold your screens. Make sure that guard is, getting a clear view. And make Tavares have to make decisions. But I think that's the biggest thing there. You're going to have to find a solution for Deck just because of his size. They're going to probably utilize him a lot in the post, especially when y'all go 3 guards. So you're going to be the one probably front and fighting because you're the strongest and the biggest out of the
3. I'm going to do my best.
And then y'all need to make Lou and Rodriguez work defensively. I think that y'all can give them nightmares. There's really no rest for them because sometimes when they come in the game, they might try to hide one of those 2. And whether it's you, whether it's Mike, whether it's Okobo, I think definitely those guys need to be in every pick and roll action, and Montejunas needs to be holding those screens.
For sure. I agree, especially with Demo Montejunas, him being able to step out and stretch the floor, that kind of brings Tavares out as well. So, I remember having similar success when I was in Valencia with Dublovic, Big Doobie. He would step out, hit a couple threes. That kind of opened up the game. So little things like that. But that's some good advice too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Shoot that pull up 3. Pull up 3
gonna
be there for you.
For sure. It's always there. Just gotta knock it down.
Gentlemen, it was a lovely evening with you, actually. Yeah, I enjoyed this basketball conversation, discussing some important things that are going on in the EuroLeague at the moment. So thanks a lot for your time, especially, considering the fact that Jordan is playing a big game against Asvel. Eric also has a big task ahead in the Champions League. Very important game against Bonn. I'm right. You're playing home or away?
Home,
Okay.
first time with fans too, so it's gonna be packed.
Mm,
Oh yeah.
enjoy that, bro.
Yeah, so
be
thanks a
fun.
lot. Best of luck for your upcoming games, and everybody follow these guys. As you notice, they have something to say about EuroLeague basketball. They're worth a follow. Mr. J Loyd on Twitter, and also Eric M Free as well, right? So also hit some like and follow buttons on basketnews.com, both on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube channel. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, man.